Thank you for joining me in this final session of the day. Hopefully, you've enjoyed. Um, thank you. You can hear me well. That's good to know. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the day, um, and you've got to attend some useful online sessions. I think it's been really useful for myself. And as Dea said, we've had some good engagement in the previous sessions. So hopefully, we will continue in the same vein. I'm just going to give you an introduction to the GMC. I'm going to get you thinking about the standards that we have in place and what professionalism means to medical students and to the doctors of the future. So, wherever you are at in your career at the moment, whether you are a current medical student, whether you are already a registered doctor, whether you are thinking about whether medical school and a career in medicine is the right career path for you. Hopefully, this session will just give you a flavour of some of the things that you will want to consider as you progress in a potential career within medicine. I don't think it will last the full time, so probably aim to be done about 5:30, so you'll get a bit of time back from myself, but do want it to be an interactive session, so I'll be asking you questions. Please do join in and use the chat function to share any comments that you've got with me, any questions that you want to ask. Please do fire away in the chat box as we move through the next half an hour or so. So we're really going to look at what the GMC do. So I'll talk to you about my role at the GMC, why I am sat on my laptop on a Saturday afternoon talking to you, and the other key roles that we have at the GMC. I'm just going to introduce you to the variety of standards that we've got in place that apply to all doctors who are registered and working in the UK, and also the standards that we've got in place to help support medical students throughout your journey during med school. So talk about that different support that's available via our standards. Then just going to have a very brief talk about social media and just get you to think how you use social media now and what that might mean for your future career and things that we need to consider if you are a medical student or if you are looking to start med school first, what your use of social media might mean to your future career, and if you're already a doctor, things that we need to be aware of as well. So cover those key points, and just I will then point you towards some other resources that are available on the GMC website to help and support you. And if you are thinking about a career in medicine, you may want to have a look at those to help in your decision-making process. So first and foremost, just want to introduce you to the sort of the career of a future doctor, really, the career path that you are likely to go on if you decide that a career in medicine is for you, and at which point you are likely to have involvement and input from the GMC as your regulator. So if you apply to med school, then you are likely to be going to medical school for anywhere between 4 and 6 years, depending on the course that you apply to. But throughout that period at medical school, the GMC are responsible for the education and training that you receive. So we set the standards for medical schools in the UK in terms of what they have got to deliver to students. So what that really means is wherever you go to med school in the UK, whether it be in Manchester, which is not far from where I'm based, I'm just outside of Manchester city centre, whether you go to Liverpool, whether you go up to Aberdeen, Cardiff, over in Northern Ireland, down south in Exeter or London, wherever you choose to go to, you should be receiving the same level of education and training, which means that when you get to the end of the 4, 5 or 6 years and you are ready to graduate and apply for your provisional registration, you will all be at the same point. So you should all be ready to join that GMC register on a provisional basis and start your F1 year. Once you get to the end of med school, as we said, you apply for your provisional registration and you hopefully complete your foundation year 1 successfully. You then move on to, or you then get full registration and move on to your foundation year 2. And at the end of foundation year 2, you have a decision to make really about what you do next. And at that point, you may continue to follow the usual path of stepping into specialty training, and that can take you anywhere from 3 to 8 years. What we are finding more and more regularly is that at the end of F2 year, doctors are just taking a step out of training and just stepping back and considering your options and looking to develop more experience in certain areas, and that's something that is becoming more and more regular. But at some point you will step into your specialty training, hopefully, and you will specialize in a certain area. And once you've completed that specialty training, you will then join the specialist register in the area that you've specialized in, or you will join the GP register. So throughout your career, you will be having contact with the GMC, whether it be because you are in med school or a doctor in training, and you are having that ongoing contact with us, whether it's once you complete your training and you join the specialist register and then you start thinking about revalidation, ongoing really contact with us as your regulator throughout your career. So just a question there from Fatima. What do we do in F1 and F2? So F1 is your first year out of medical school, so you are the most junior doctor, if you like, in any department that you are working in. But really what F1 and F2 is about you rotating round different areas within the hospital. So you rotate round 4 specialties in F1 and 4 specialties in F2, and that's helping you gain different skills and different experience. So it's helping you develop your skills as a doctor, helping you improve, but also helping you decide what you want to do in the future. So you might do a placement in pediatrics, you might do a placement in A&E or in surgery, and you're just gaining different experiences which allow you to get to the end of foundation year 2. And then you make a decision about what the future holds for you and what you want to specialize in moving forward. It might be that you've done a placement, one of your rotations has been working as a GP, and you might really enjoy that. So you get to the end of F2 and you decide, actually, I now want to take the route of specializing as a GP. So really F1 and F2 is about your gaining that experience and the skills for your future career, really. Sorry, I was trying to look at the questions and I flicked the slides on. Let me see a couple of questions. So what is the future of GEM? Can you explain what GEM is, just so I know? I don't. Courses given Brexit and probable changes in policy and regulation. So Brexit is going to cause graduate entry. Sorry, should have known that. So we still don't know what the future holds in terms of Brexit, not just from a medical point of view and obviously GMC in terms of our regulation, but really because we don't know what we're going to be leaving with, do we? We don't know what deal is going to be agreed, and depending what deal is agreed, depending if we leave without a deal, it's going to leave questions for us that we absolutely recognise we are working on at the moment, and we've got a number of sort of plans in place depending on what deal that we actually leave the EU with. So it is going to impact on things, but some things it will make some things it will make slightly easier, perhaps in terms of doctors joining the register, but other things it will make more complex. So it's very difficult for me to answer specific issues about Brexit at this moment, because we just really don't know what the future holds for the UK as a whole, and what the knock-on effects will be in terms of GMC and regulation. But there's information on the website, and it will be, regularly updated. And as soon as we know what deal is in place and what that means for us and for you as potential doctors of the future, then that information will be on the website. So do keep checking that and getting the updates. And if the information isn't there, you'll have my contact details at the end of this session. So feel free to drop me an email or just give our contact center a call, and they will be able to help you out. Just a question there from Fatima. So if you were not to specialize, then F1 and F2 wouldn't be right for you. I'm not sure I fully understand that question, to be honest, but every doctor, so you have to complete foundation year 1. You don't have full registration with the GMC until you've completed that first year. That's still part of your training. So every doctor has to complete foundation year 1. And if you want to, if you want to continue in your training, you also have to complete foundation year 2. So I think that you could, I guess in theory, you could complete foundation year 1 and you've got your full registration then, but it would be it'd be very difficult for you to find a role, I think, and progress within your career without completing your 2 foundation years. So F1 and F2, all doctors complete those years, and that then puts you at the point where you decide what you want to do next. F3, so F3 is a terminology that the GMC don't use. It's terminology that doctors use, and we do talk about when we do use when we talk to doctors, really. So F3 is really what doctors call when they complete their foundation year 2 and they step out of training. So you are no longer a doctor in training. You're not going down this route of stepping straight into specialty training. You are really taking a break and you are assessing your options at that point. And it's difficult for me to talk about, because it's very much up to you as an individual, and individual doctors at that stage will make completely different decisions and decide what works best for you. What we used to find is at the end of F2, lots of doctors would go off traveling for a year, and they would go over to Australia or New Zealand or other parts of the world, and they would potentially work as a doctor in those other countries and gain more experience, or they might just go traveling for 12 months and just relax and have a different experience. We found that's happening less and less now, actually. What doctors are choosing to do is to step out of training and just work as a doctor, as a staff grade doctor, really. So you're not in training, you're just gaining experience in different areas. So doctors use that if they're not sure what they want to do for their specialty training moving forward. They decide to step out of training and get more experience in different areas, because that's going to help you make a decision, which is really potentially impacting the rest of your life when you are choosing what specialty you want to go into. So doctors make different decisions at that point, and as you gain experience during med school and F1 and F2, you will decide what's best for you, and you will have an idea of the options available. Just having a look at some of the other questions that come through. So what's the difference between provisional registration and full GMC registration? So with provisional registration, there are certain things that you are still unable to do. You are not classed as a fully qualified doctor at that stage. You don't have full GMC registration. You're still, F1 is still officially part of your medical training, and you don't have full registration until you've completed that foundation year 1. So if you wanted to join the army as a doctor, so that would depend. Are you going to that would depend if you're training whilst in the army. So some future doctors will join the army and they will train you to be a doctor while you are in the army, or you can qualify and become a doctor and then look to join the army. So there are different options available there, and again, you'd still be following the same route. You would still have to be trained and specialize in certain areas. It would just be done slightly differently through the role that you had in the army. Just let me see any questions that I've missed. So what is the difference between a specialty doctor and consultant? So if you are a specialty doctor, if you're a doctor in training, you are still learning the skills and gaining the experiences that you need to eventually become a consultant. So when you complete at the end of the 8 years, potentially, you get your CCT, and at that point you apply to join the specialist register, and you become a consultant, and you start applying for consultant roles in the area that you've specialized. And as a consultant, you are one of the most senior doctors in the area that you are working in within an organization. So do you get to choose your specialties in the foundation year? I'm not 100% sure about that, to be honest. The GMC don't manage that side of it. If you go to medical school and then you are going on to do your F1 and F2 year, you will apply to train in a certain area of the UK. So it could be Scotland, it could be Wales, could be one of the regions within England. So you would be applying to maybe the Northwest Deanery or London or Southeast, wherever you want to train. You will be applying to those deaneries, and those deaneries have called Health Education Northwest or Health Education London, wherever it might be. They will have different processes in terms of allocating your placements for F1 and F2 years. So it would all be done slightly differently, I think. And I'm sure there would be a way that you can perhaps put forward your preferences, but that's not always going to be, they're not always going to be able to manage things that way. So again, a question about F1 and F2. So where's best to do your F1 or F2 role? Again, totally up to you. It depends, and I meet with doctors on a daily basis, and any doctor you speak to will have a different preference and a different experience. Some doctors, so I'm responsible for a hospital up in the Lake Districts, up in Cumbria, and that's quite a small district general hospital. And those trainees really enjoy that they're a smaller group of trainees and they get that more personal one-to-one training, but perhaps not working in as busy as an environment as some of the trainees who are quite local to me in central Manchester. They work in really large, busy hospitals. It's just a different way of training and a different way of learning. So certainly, it's up to you and what your preferences are in terms of where you would be looking to live or work, perhaps in the future in the UK. So can I work as a full full salary doctor after F1? So again, I don't want to give a definitive answer on this because I'm actually not 100% sure, but I do think once you gain your full GMC registration, you are on the register and you could potentially work then full-time as a salaried doctor, but I think it would be very difficult for you because there would be questions about why you hadn't completed your F2 year, why you'd not done all your rotations. So I don't want to say yes or no, really. It'd be something to look at in more detail. And certainly, I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to just continue on the pathway and at least complete your F2 year and then make decisions about what's best for you in the future. So if you want to become a therapeutic radiographer, should I study medicine at uni radiography? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Yeah, there are more slides. I will move through them once. The questions about sort of what's best for you moving forward, decisions that unfortunately you just have to make and speak to other people who have been through those processes. I can't advise you on, what to apply, what qualifications you need. They're not decisions that we make at the GMC. That's up to the individual institutions that you would be applying to. So we'll move on. Just going to ask you a quick quiz question. What's the primary purpose of the General Medical Council? Anyone got an idea here? Are we set up to protect patients, or are we set up to protect doctors? Anyone want? So we've got protect doctors, got protect patients, bit of a mix. So quite interesting that I think the majority seem to be going for option B, which is protect doctors. Just have it. Yeah, quite a lot going for option B, a couple going for both. So actually, legally, in law, the GMC was set up well over 100 years ago now, and we were set up as a patient protecting organisation. So that is our primary function, is to ensure that patients are protected. Now, it's not as straightforward as that, because we do provide support for doctors. So there should probably be an option C here. I think there should be protecting patients by supporting doctors. So we have guidance available to support doctors. We run sessions to try and improve doctors' knowledge and understanding of the guidelines in place. But ultimately, we are set up as an organisation to protect patients. That is, if you look in the Medical Act, that is why we were set up. And exactly kind of as Alice is saying there, that we have guidance in place that we'll look at in a few slides' time, and it's ensuring that doctors are working within those guidelines and standards that we have in place. So what do you know about the GMC? I've given you a few clues already. Have you got any idea of what the roles are at the GMC? See if you can remember anything that I've already said. I've given you a few clues already. Some of you have been in the sessions previously, so you might have seen the jigsaw that I'm putting together already. Well, first and foremost, we're responsible for education. So as I've said earlier on the slides, we set the standards for education and training, both in terms of undergraduate, so medical students, and postgraduate, so doctors in training. We hold the register of all doctors. Anyone want to guess how many doctors there are on the register? So at the moment, there are just over 330,000 doctors on the GMC register, and any doctor, 1 million would be an ideal number, but it's just over 330,000. And any doctor who wants to work in the UK has to go through the registration process. And Wehan there, I think, has seen some of the slides and knows a lot about what we do and has covered a lot of the points. So revalidation, not going to talk about it in any detail. It's something that doctors have to do every 5 years. And do go and have a look on the website if you are interested in knowing more about that. We're responsible for fitness to practice, and that's the most high profile area of our work. And that is about complaints that are received about doctors. So where patients, members of the public, employers are unhappy with a doctor, they can complain to us and we could potentially investigate that doctor. And then the standards that we've got, so good medical practice, in the middle there, other areas of our guidance that apply to doctors. And really that's my role at the GMC, is to raise doctors' awareness of these areas of guidance. And these are two key pieces of guidance, as we said: good medical practice, and then the outcomes and standards for undergraduate medical education. So that helps if you're thinking about going to medical school, understanding the outcomes and standards that relate to you is a good starting point. And this is what good medical practice says. So this is what we think, in a nutshell, makes a good doctor. I'll just give you a moment to read that, but not going to go into great detail discussing that really. It's just quite a nice paragraph that sums up a good doctor, I think. And we then have our Achieving Good Medical Practice, and this is guidance that is specifically for medical students. So if you are thinking about applying and going to medical school, having a look at this piece of guidance is going to be a really good starting point for you, and thinking about how this guidance would apply to you, how you would put it into practice when you're at medical school, I think is a really good starting point really for any potential future doctor. So question there from Isabel. So what is integrity? So integrity is really a quality of it's about being honest and having strong morals, really just summing up what is said on the last slide really. So there we go, there's a link to our guidance, which is extremely helpful, but just really being open and honest, and treating your doctors with a high level of professionalism. So all of the guidance is available on the GMC website. So if you have a look at the link that Wehan has helpfully put on the chat for me, that is extremely useful. That will take you to all of the guidance, and you'll be able to look at everything that we are discussing during this session. I'm going to skip through these slides because I'm conscious of time and I want to have a look at our guidance in a bit more detail. So anybody any idea who said this? With great power comes great responsibility. So the question there from Priscilla about how many years for neurosurgeon follows the same pathway. So you've got 2 years for your foundation year. You've then got 2 years of core medical training or surgical training, then you'll go into your specialty. So all in all, you're probably looking at about 10, maybe 11 or 12 years until you get your CCT in whichever specialty you are aiming for. And there we go, a number of you have said so. I'll go with the one that I know it most well for is Spider-Man's uncle. So it was Spider-Man's uncle who said, with great power comes great responsibility. But also, as Isabella said, Voltaire did also say this a number of years ago before Spider-Man's uncle used this quote. But I think most people now know it for being said by Spider-Man's uncle. But I just like to use this because I do think, if you are aiming for a career as a doctor, you are going to be in a position where you do have a large amount of power, and with that power does come great responsibility. Patients will trust you, patients will come and see you, and they place their trust in you, and you have a responsibility to treat those patients as best as you can, and to be be extremely responsible and professional and caring towards those patients. So just bear this quote in mind. If you start at medical school, once you go on placements, do think about the responsibility that you are taking on when you become a doctor. And I just want to highlight one of our key pieces of guidance. Really, it's a supplementary piece of guidance, but I think it's it's really useful to sort of the today's generation and the doctors of the future, really, because I think most people now are on social media in some form. So quickly, just let me know what social media accounts you've got. Pop them into the chat box. Is there anyone who isn't on any form of social media? And we're thinking about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok. Any of you write any blogs? Have YouTube channels? Lots of different. Yeah. So there we go. Lots of them coming through. Probably some channels that I am unaware of because I'm probably a little bit older than you, but most people now, the world that we live in, everything and everybody is on social media, whether that be posting pictures of what you're having for your tea, whether it be posting your thoughts on the US election, whether you are doing YouTube channels or TikTok videos of keeping yourselves entertained during lockdown. Everybody is on social media, and what we have found is that actually doctors now using social media. It's really important that you've got an awareness of what you should and shouldn't be doing, and even things that you are posting now could potentially impact your future career. And patients will look for you if you go through med school, if you qualify as a doctor, you start seeing patients will look for you on social media. They will try and add you on Facebook. They will try and access your Instagram pictures. So it's important that even at this stage, you're thinking, are the things that I am posting online, things that I am happy for people to see in the future? Because once it's online, once it's out there, you then lose control of things. So certainly important just to start thinking about, what the future holds for you, and what you are and aren't doing on social media at the moment. So I'm just going to ask you quite a strange question, I think, sometimes. How many of you check your digital footprint? And by that, I really mean who Googles themselves, who goes onto Google and puts their name in and looks at what comes up when you press Google on your own name. So interesting point there from Weehan. Are doctors not allowed to communicate with patients on social media? So you shouldn't be directly communicating with patients on a one-to-one basis, really, but you can certainly have Twitter accounts, those types of things, and you can talk to individuals who may or may not be your patients, but you shouldn't be interacting with your own patients and discussing, diagnosis and care plans, etc., via social media. You want to maintain that professional boundary with you and your patients. So quite a few of you have said yes, a couple of no's in there. So my big piece of advice from this session would be to regularly Google yourself. And I think it sounds quite strange, but you will be amazed as to what comes up when you Google your own name and you just look at what information is out there about you. So it's a good way of checking that your privacy settings are working so that people can't access your Instagram, your Facebook, maybe your Twitter if you want that to be private. People can't, access your social media apps if you like, but also just gives you an idea of what information is out there about you. So I actually ran a social media session with a group of foundation year 2 doctors. It was about 12 months ago now, actually. And we were talking about this, and one of the doctors just, looked at me like I was a bit stupid, really, and why was I suggesting that this would be helpful? So I just said, type your name into Google on your phone now and see what comes up. So this doctor did just that, and it came up with a whole host of articles that were about this doctor that they had no idea existed, they didn't know were online, and it's information that patients can find out about you. Now, there might be nothing that you can do about that. These articles were about a doctor's running career. So when she was at school, she was quite a talented runner, and there was just articles about her races that she'd been involved in. But that's helpful for you to know, because patients could potentially know that information, and if they turn up for an appointment and they start asking you about this information that they are aware of and they've found online, you don't want to be on the back foot and not be prepared for that. So Googling yourself is just a way of seeing what information is out there about you. So when employers look at your social media accounts, if they are private, will they still research it? So I think if your accounts are private, then there's nothing that any prospective employers can do. They can't access that information. So making sure your accounts are private, I think, is a good starting point. I just want to share an article with you that there was, quite a high profile article. Obviously, they're covered in The Guardian, and this is going back a number of years now, but Youth Crime Commissioner actually ended up standing down from her position over comments that were made on social media. So, if you are making comments now, you only have to look at things that are dragged up in the news about people in high profile positions where they've made mistakes a number of years ago. And you want to be thinking about that now. Make sure that you're not posting things online that are likely to offend people and potentially in the future bring your profession into disrepute. So does anyone recognize this picture? Does anybody recognize anybody in this? Does anybody recognize the person in this picture first and foremost? Oh, you can see it at the top, actually. Do we all know who Jeremy Hunt is? And what could go wrong in this picture? So Jeremy Hunt was the health secretary at the time this picture was taken, and he was visiting an A&E department in, I think it was in London, where he made the visit. So one of our government ministers at the time, Matt Hancock has his role now. You might know who Matt Hancock is, been in the news obviously very regularly, but Jeremy Hunt went and visited this A&E department, and he wanted a picture taken with some of the doctors and nurses that he'd spent the day with. Now, I don't know if you can see in the background of this picture, so Jeremy Hunt put this on Twitter, and if you look above, the nurse on the doctor, sorry, on the right-hand side of the picture with the glasses on and the dark hair, you can see a black sort of scrubbed out whiteboard there. What actually happened in this situation was Jeremy Hunt got this picture taken, and that whiteboard wasn't blurred out. So on that whiteboard, there was a list of patients who were in A&E at the time, with their names, the conditions that they were in with, the diagnosis, and just private information about them. Jeremy Hunt posted this on Twitter, and caused quite a few issues. He was posting confidential information about patients, absolutely breaking patient confidentiality. And this is just an example of quite a simple mistake that's made, really. So just wanting you to think about things that you may think are absolutely innocent and are not going to cause issues can come back and create those issues for you. So if you are posting things online, and I'm pretty sure if you go to med school, you will want to highlight the fact that you are at med school, and probably going to be very proud of that. And when you go on placements, you might want pictures taken with your colleagues, but just be very aware of the information that can inadvertently be shared if you don't take and think about the consequences of your actions. Just one, what might be wrong with this picture? Is there anything wrong with this picture? What do we think about this? Are there any comments coming through? Are there any problems with this picture being posted on social media, do we think? Yep, so perhaps drinking on the job, looks like they're still at work. Yep, so they're in the scrubs. That, you know, you look at this could be an absolutely innocent picture. Start with the most innocent outcome. Could just be a fancy dress party. These may not be doctors. These may just be three individuals who have decided to go to a fancy dress party and have dressed up as doctors. It may be something innocent, that these are just working doctors, and after work they've got home and they've decided to have a couple of drinks to relax. Could be that these are non-alcoholic drinks. They could be in the workplace, but they might not be drinking alcohol. That could be a non-alcoholic bottle of beer or can or cocktail. So lots of, this could be an extremely innocent picture. It might not be what it first appears at all, but the problem is, if this picture is posted online, it creates all of those questions that you have been suggesting in the chat box. So on first appearance, we think this is three doctors who are drinking on the job. They are at work and potentially under the influence of alcohol. Also issues, I like the point there about the doctor's ID being available, and lots of workplaces now, particularly hospitals around the UK, don't want doctors to sort of advertise where they work, and they don't want they don't want pictures being posted with ID badges or lanyards that suggest where they might be working at the time. I'm seeing some of the other comments. Yeah, so as Isabella said there in one of the last comments, it's just giving the wrong impression. And this could be a perfectly innocent picture, but if you post this on Facebook, if you post it on Twitter, wherever it might be, straight away people are going to question this, and it raises questions about your behavior in the workplace. So certainly just thinking about how people might interpret things that you post online. And certainly as you start at med school, and you will want to enjoy yourself at medical school and live the life as a medical student, but just do start thinking about, even now at this early stage, what sort of things are you posting online, and how might they be perceived by other people who don't know you and don't know the situation that you are in. So just thinking about those perceptions that others may have. So just want to excuse me, direct you to information that's available on the GMC website. So if you're thinking about a career in medicine and joining med school, then this might be a good starting point for you to start thinking about some of the things that you might be faced with as a student in the future. So go onto the GMC website and just have a look at some of the challenges that you may likely be faced with, and think about how you would manage those different scenarios. So onto the website, have a look at those, should be useful. Also then, we've got good medical practice in action, so you can look at the website and look at the guidance that applies to doctors, and just learn more about that guidance and how doctors manage different scenarios. So you can watch case studies, you can watch quick videos, and you can carry out little assessments to see what your knowledge and understanding is of the different areas of our guidance. And things that might be useful would be things around consent and confidentiality, um, personal beliefs and medical practice, conflicts of interest. So some interesting areas to look at and test your knowledge and understanding of the guidance and how that might apply to you in the future. And we'll wrap things up now. I'm conscious of time and don't want to keep you any longer than we need to, but hopefully you've found that very brief run through of sort of the roles of the GMC and how we would interact with doctors useful. If you've got any specific questions, then feel free to drop me an email and we can talk about them separately. If you've got any particular questions, happy to try and help out. Might not always have the answers, but happy to talk to you about those. So good question from Georgie there, and I probably should have clarified this right at the start of the presentation. It's the second time I've not done this today, so I do apologise that I am not a doctor. I'm not a qualified doctor. Very few doctors work at the GMC. We do have some doctors employed at the GMC, but I am not. I meet with groups of doctors 3 or 4 days a week. I'm not telling those doctors how to treat their patients, how to clinically manage their patients. That's what you go to medical school for. That's where you get the skills and experience to work as a doctor. What I am here to do is just to help doctors understand that the GMC guidance and how that applies to the practice, their practice on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for coming along and getting involved, answering questions and engaging with me. It makes it much more interesting and fun for me. And good luck for the future. If you are looking to go to medical school, then good luck with your application. If you go to medical school in the Northwest, then I may see you all at some point in the future. I deliver regular sessions to many of the medical schools around the Northwest, and hopefully one day in the not so distant future, we might be back to delivering face-to-face sessions. But all the best for the future, and hopefully see you all at some point during your future careers. Thank you very much.